Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now, over the course of the year, I've been wanting to build a gaming/streaming PC. When looking at price points, the sweet spot seems to be around the $1,000 mark for custom PCs and around the $1,200 mark for pre-builds and gaming laptops. As you know, with all the tariffs being put on PC parts and the current GPU drought right now, this can be a bit of a challenge. I'll both be explaining about the parts I purchased, how I purchased them, and how this PC build is an entirely realistic option if you're in the market to build a PC. Now, I will say right out of the gate, as of now, the GPU market is really bad to the point that personally, I recommend purchasing a pre-build due to the crazy sky-high prices that the market is in right now. When you see cards like the GT 1030, which I consider a 720p gaming card, mind you, fetch close to $200 on Amazon and eBay, you know it's bad. So you're probably wondering how I received the GPU. First off, I'm not sponsored by any companies, so everything featured in this video was purchased with my own money. As for GPUs, the only place that I've seen any prices down to earth right now is either Newegg or Micro Center. However, the latter is your best bet due to it being the only in-person, not online store that offers GPUs, to my knowledge. Anything sold online I simply couldn't purchase due to bots. I personally was fortunate enough to be in the right place at the right time and picked up the last 1650 Super they had in the store on that day. Sometimes Micro Center has like a batch of 10 graphics cards which you can basically go pick up at any time during the day. The earlier in the day the better, obviously. If you can't buy a decent gaming GPU but want to have a workstation running, the GT 710s and 1030s are the only options that I see stay in stock across multiple days at Micro Center. As for the people that don't have Micro Center near you, your only options are to purchase a pre-build, take your chance with the Newegg Shuffle, or scour the second-hand market for any GPU deals. I wouldn't even touch Amazon due to the ridiculous sky-high prices. Moving on to my parts list, for the CPU, I went with an open box Ryzen 7 3700X from Micro Center for around $220. They usually fetch for $279 brand new, but if you can get your hand on a second-hand Ryzen 7 3700X, the amount of cores and threads are simply superior in my opinion. The 8 cores and 16 threads will pair well with most games and editing softwares we plan to use with this PC. For the RAM, I went with two 16 sticks of Corsair DDR4 Vengeance RGB RAM off of Amazon. At the time of making this video, the prices are a bit high right now, at around the $200 mark, but when I purchased it, it was around the $140 mark for the 3600 MHz variant. Therefore, I recommend the Team Grip GeForce Delta RGB DDR4 32GB 3600 MHz based on the specs being very similar to the ones I bought, and due to it having a much lower price compared to Corsair's version. However, if you want to be sure about the RAM, do the research yourself, as it's really based on preference and whatever bells and whistles you might want on it. Like, do you care about RGB? You don't. If you don't, the price will obviously be cheaper. For the motherboard, I went with the MSI Gaming Pro Carbon due to its VRMs and VRM heatsinks. I've seen reviews, and even when putting a Ryzen 9 on this board, the temps stay relatively reasonable. You're probably wondering why I didn't go entry-level B550 for around a comparable price. That's because I don't really have need for PCIe 4.0 and faster speeds for my SSD. One, because the faster SSDs are expensive, and two, even GPUs like the RTX 3080 and 3090 don't need PCIe 4.0. Additionally, if you plan to upgrade your CPUs to 4th gen Ryzen, you can update the BIOS of your already existing B450 motherboard if you already have it, or if you plan to purchase one. However, let's say you can find a great deal on a 4th gen Ryzen CPU, or your workflow can greatly take advantage of faster SSD speeds, I'd recommend a B550 motherboard, as you don't have to deal with the muss and fuss of updating the BIOS. For the case, I went with the Lianli LandCool 2 Mesh RGB from Amazon due to its positive ratings from Gamers Nexus for its thermals and reasonable price for what you're getting. Cases are a huge matter of preference between size, noise, and thermals, but I wouldn't recommend cheaping out on a case due to it simply being a pain to build in and all the cable management required, especially if you're building for a first time. Usually the rule of thumb is the bigger the case, the easier it is to build it. Now, as for the power supply, I went with the Apivia Prestige 800 watt from Amazon, due to its positive reviews and cheap price for 800 watts. Enough said. If you don't trust Apivia, then find any power supply with comparable costs from other companies. The total watt rating is well below 800 watts, so you don't have to worry. As long as it's above 300 or 400 watt power supply, it should be good. Me personally, I think the reviews of a power supply speak beyond the brand of the power supply, so that's why I'm okay going with Apivia. Now for the graphics card, I went with an EVGA GTX 1650 Super for Micro Center for around $240. Usually the MSRP is $180 for 1650 Supers in general, but even though this has a $60 markup, I think it's quite reasonable considering the tariffs and the current GPU market as of now. As for storage, I picked the Seagate Barracuda 2TB HDD for storing games and the Western Digital 250GB SSD for your Windows operating system and the fast boot up times. Well, that does it for this video. Stay tuned for part 2, where I show you the final product after the PC's been built. If you have any questions about my parts choice, leave them down in the comments below. If you liked the video, why not leave me a like, and hey, if you're new around here, subscribe to stay up to date on any content I may post in the future. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, bye-bye.
Nobody